Hi, hello, and welcome back to the 1983 National Football League Draft.
And with the first round pick,
John Elway, Jim Kelly.
Welcome back to the
Draft.
And with the first round pick,
Dan Marino. I really don't understand.
NFL Draft. And with the first round pick,
Deion Sanders.
I was kind of scared. I thought Detroit was going to take me. I would ask for so much money that I had to put me on layaway.
Welcome back to the
NFL Draft.
Good young players. What the draft's all about.
Year in and year out.
Welcome back to the
Draft.
Hello, it's the One Star Cowboys podcast. We're recording this Wednesday morning, the 16th, so 8 days away from the NFL Draft, where the Cowboys have the number 12 pick. I'm Kevin Turner with John Machota, Saad Youssef, and Kent Garrison. Before we get into our annual tradition of doing a bit of a 3-round mock, where we kind of try to make our Cowboys picks to be, a little different from each other's, and just kind of thought a few scenarios of players they might take, we should probably discuss the news from yesterday regarding Tyron Smith, one of the all-time great Cowboys, signing a 1-day contract with the Cowboys. And then I guess after we get done podcasting, you have to go to the press conference today. But just your thoughts on that announcement yesterday. Has the Cowboys done the one-day contract in a while?
I'm not sure about that. I can't remember the last one. So I know that there's teams that have done this in the past. Yeah. So it makes sense. I mean, I don't think anybody thinks of him as anything but a Dallas Cowboy. And so, he's one of the best offensive linemen in the franchise history. So it makes sense that he would technically finish his career as a Dallas Cowboy. And, like we were saying before we started recording the show, like we have the press conference with him, and that'll probably be as much as we've heard from him during his entire time with the Cowboys, just because he's not one that really likes talking to the media. And then if you do go by his locker, and you get them, it's like very quickly, maybe like 30 seconds or whatever. So this will be kind of interesting from that perspective. But there's no question that he deserves, a retirement press conference. He deserves to be in the Ring of Honor, deserves to one day be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I think the big thing that people always point to with Tyron is that for a good chunk of his career, for probably about a decade, he was, if not the best offensive tackle, he was one of the best offensive tackles. And during that time, the Cowboys had one of the league's best offensive lines, with Zach Martin obviously being a key part of that. Now they both retire within a couple months of each other. And obviously the only thing missing from their resumes is that there just wasn't that playoff success that, that when you think of the Dallas Cowboys and people in the Ring of Honor and things like that, you think of probably getting to some Super Bowls and things like that. And that just never happened for them, despite having them both on the offensive line for, like I said, at least a decade of really good football. So that part's disappointing, but that doesn't take away from what he was or Zach was as a player. So no, it's very, very deserving. I'm interested to see how much he really has to say about it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people sometimes forget about those late 2000, or I would say mid 2000 Cowboys, and how much of a problem the offensive line used to actually be around here. And Tyron was kind of the first real seed that was planted in changing all of that, because Tyron was drafted in 2011, then Travis Frederick came, and then Zach Martin the following year, and then during that time is when DeMarco Murray had his 2014 year. Zeke, and then launching Dak's career, all of those things going together. I think he has that storied legacy, and I'm not sure when the last time did Dez not sign a 1-year contract or a 1-day contract. I don't remember, but
I don't think so. No, I don't remember him having
retired.
Yeah,
honestly.
Yeah. It says no online. Yeah, because remember he went to the Saints,
Ravens, and the Ravens. Yeah.
So technically he still could come back and play.
Yeah. If you see the video of him running routes on Instagram, then he's definitely in shape and ready to go. Yeah, no, it's interesting. One of my least favorite conversations in sports is Hall of Fame stuff, but Zach and Tyron, are we good? Is Tyron for sure. Zach, longevity is weird in the NFL now. You don't have to play very long. I say yes on both. Homer take.
I'm pretty sure that the criteria for a lot of these guys is like you got a really good chance of getting in. Like I don't know the exacts on it, but I'm pretty sure that if you make all decade at any point in your career, you end up eventually getting in the Hall of Fame. Because I think Drew Pearson was the last player that had that on his resume, but still wasn't in the Hall of Fame. And so Both Tyron and Zach are all-decade offensive linemen from the 2010s. So I would think that, I'm not saying necessarily first ballot, but they're both getting in eventually.
Yeah. Individually, I would have said both first ballot would be, but then when you think about both of them going in together and the politics that kind of come into sending two offensive linemen from the same team into the Hall of Fame.
That didn't even get to an NFC Championship game.
Right. Yeah. Like that's where I think like 5 years from now, I don't know that Tyron and Zach get to go in. Now, if they did, that would be a really cool story. But I think they might cut them up a little bit and go in different years.
Think about what the conversation is going to be like for Ring of Honor. For just this generation, like the post-2000 generation of players, there's so many. It's starting to stack up here with how many guys are potential Ring of Honor guys, and not everybody gets in the Ring of Honor that's probably deserving. It's going to be interesting to see who eventually gets in there, of the Zachs, the Tyrons, the Romos, all those guys.
Witten.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot.
Yeah. There's a
Mike
lot.
Dak and Zeke, and I mean, Dez, there's
Jalen Smith.
it's done.
Those are the ones. You're right, though. Tyron, very soft spoken. So good luck at the press conference today, because, but yeah, I'm sure we'll get your Jerry and Steven and go out there. Maybe we run Will McClay out there. Let's have a little fun. Let's spice this thing up. Let's start talking draft. Let's overshadow a guy's.
I'm not gonna lie. I thought Tyron would have Tim Duncan this thing. I didn't think that he would really do a press conference. Not because of anything on our side. I just didn't think that he would want to even sit up there and talk to us.
And maybe that whole thing of this is home, and so after some reflection, maybe we can do this. And maybe he watched Zach Martin's thing, and maybe he probably wrote. I bet it's very similar to Zach Martin's, where he wrote, a 5-minute thing or whatever, reads it right off the card, and then maybe some maybe some current Cowboys are there. Maybe you can get another health check on DeMarvion Overshown, things like that. Those are things that really jump out. But a great career for Tyron, clearly. Good Lord. So yeah, let's get to mocking. Enough beating around the bush here. 3 rounds is what we do. We do this every year. We try to kind of make it a little different. Looking at, I would say what we would do. We're going to take trades out of it because trades are hard to predict. If the Cowboys are going to trade, I think we could probably say that they're not going to trade up. So let's just stay where we are. And we'll start with pick 12. Saad, we'll start with you this year. Who is your Cowboys pick here? And I don't think you guys tell me if you disagree with the criteria I've laid out too, because not what I do. I'm going for more what I think they'll do or what I think they're thinking more than what I would do. That's the way I'm doing this. But if you guys want to go another way, go ahead.
No, it works for me.
Yeah, and I ran this mock a couple of times last night and tried to get a different guy because the guy that I ended up with, Tet McMillan, wouldn't be a bad pick. It's just every mock is having him, so I was trying to do something a little different. But I couldn't honestly go through the generator and not take him, especially when there was no other really good alternative there. So. Sorry if that's a little repetitive. I think we'll get a little different in the second and third rounds, but yeah, mine was Tet McMillan.
I don't have first of all, one of us was going to have to take him because I think that's a realistic option. I will say there's a part of me that wonders if he's there at 12 and if they would be upset at that and how high he would be on their board, because I do think of all the guys we've talked about, he's the guy I want them to take. The most realistic guy I do want them to take. I do think he would make a little bit of a difference, especially long term, but I think it helps CeeDee Lamb and Dak in the passing game immensely. But there's some teams ahead of you, and I think a lot of teams might have a pretty big gap in what wide receiver 2, if we're going to count Travis Hunter's wide receiver 1, what wide receiver 2 and wide receiver 3 is. Because if you say McMillan was gone and the Cowboys took a wide receiver at 12, I would not like that at all. And I would like it if it was McMillan, and that's kind of where the line is drawn for me. I don't know how you guys feel about that.
Oh, I completely agree. If you don't like me taking Teteroa McMillan for the Dallas Cowboys like I did in my draft, give me more interesting players then. It's a boring draft. Sorry. Pro Football Focus. I ran through the simulator. If it wasn't McMillan, it was Tyler Warren for Penn State, the tight end, which I don't think they need a tight end. I think Tyler Warren obviously would step in and be their best tight end, but I just think that there's a solid 4 guys in their tight end room that they feel good about. So I'm not considering tight end. I'm not considering Malachi Starks because this team doesn't take safeties. Again, I'm drafting for what I think they would do with the players that are available. And with McMillan's athletic ability and his size, to me, it fits. Like if there were more mock drafts where Ashton Genty was falling to 12, I'd be like, okay, I got something to decide on here or whatever. I like Matthew Golden. I don't like Matthew Golden as much as McMillan just because, again, the size traits for me rank higher. 1, because the Cowboys have been missing a guy like that. 2, he steps in right away, and I think he makes an instant impact in the red zone with that size. I think that's great for Dak. I think Dak's better with the bigger receivers. You know, if you notice, the Cowboys like to push that out there after they traded that 4th round pick for Mingo, that this is a Dak-friendly type receiver. He's a bigger receiver like that. So, Golden being a little bit smaller was the only reason. If he had a little bit better size, I think I would put him in that same category. But for me personally, I just don't. And then the other guy I was going to talk about would be Will Johnson, the corner from Michigan, where corner's a major need, but I don't know about 12. And so if we're not doing any trade backs, then I would go with McMillan there at 12. If there's trade backs, and let's say they move back 4 or 5 spots, you get a 3rd round pick in the process, I'm interested in all of those guys. They all can, the Michael Williams, all these guys that when I was drafting that were still on the board at that time. You know, the only thing though is I will say about a Michael Williams or a Mike Green and some of these guys is if you go it's nice because you get the extra 3rd round pick. I just don't think you can come out of those first 2 days without a corner, wide receiver, and running back. So that's why trading back a little bit, getting the extra 3rd makes a lot of sense because then you can have one of those 4 picks you'd have in the first three rounds, be somebody that, well, that's not necessarily a major need for us, but man, that's a good get there, because the other guy I was going to say that could be in play there if you were to move back would be Shamar Stewart, just because you're like, well, it's an edge rusher. He's really good. And we also still have 3 more picks in these first 2 days. We can address those needs somewhere else. But, as I sit here right now, there's not anybody that is available that fits the Cowboys and their needs better than Ted McMillan. So to me, it was a no-brainer.
I'm okay with all this. The thing I would say is, what about the scenario where he's taken before 12? So just assume where
back all day long. And by the way, Stephen Jones says that yesterday, which would have been Tuesday on 105.3 The Fan, that they're more likely they're not. I want to make sure I have the exact quote for you, but that they basically are more likely to trade back. Like that's on the table for them, and that was the one that made the most headlines out of it. But they've done that 2 of the last 4 drafts. They did it last year with Tyler Guyton. They traded back 5 spots with Detroit. And then they did it 4 years ago with Micah Parsons, trading back from 10 to 12 when the player that wasn't there, the corners, they ended up moving back a little bit there. So he said, I don't necessarily see us moving up based on the way that the board is coming together, which to me screams, there's not a lot of players worth trading up for. And then he said, but could see a situation where you move down. And like I said, 2 of the last 4 years you've moved down. McMillan's not there. It's easy for me. You take whatever the best deal is on the table. It could be moving back 1 spot. It could be moving back 7, but I'm trying to stay in the top 20. So that would probably, and I could see them feeling the same way. But I think that's the play there. If McMillan or another player that they really like isn't there, you take whatever the best offer is on the table.
And by the way, I don't think this is a good year to be an example of what I'm about to say right now, but because of what you said, John, I don't think the Cowboys, and look at Dane's, if you look at the Beast, there's 13 players with pure 1st round grades on it, meaning it's not a 1st, 2nd, it's just 1st. There's 13 players like that. And so there's going to be a lot of 1st round players that are picked that aren't 1st round grades. But we've talked before about the Cowboys and how they can kind of be reactionary a little bit, the way that they've handled the whole running back situation, everything. The last time they really traded up in the 1st round was Morris Claiborne back in 2012. And again, this isn't a good year to really serve as the example of they just don't trade up anymore. Ever since they traded up for Morris Claiborne, it didn't hit. He was supposed to be a next Dion. I think it's kind of spooked them a little bit, and I don't think trading up is really in their thing anymore.
And let's say we're coming off a different season. Like let's say 2024 was a continuation of the previous three. So again, you're a high seed in the playoffs, 12, 13 win type team. Maybe you came short in the playoffs, but Dak was healthy the whole entire time. Like Zach Martin's not retiring. Trayvon Diggs is healthy. DeMarvion Overshown is healthy. You're in a little bit, Mike McCarthy, obviously in that scenario, probably gets a contract extension. Maybe in that scenario where you just really feel like you're one player away, maybe you're more likely to do that. But with a new head coach, you do have, Zach retires, Lawrence is gone, you lose Jordan Lewis, Overshown's not healthy, Dak's coming back from an injury, Trayvon Diggs isn't healthy. You got a lot of changes on the coaching staff. I just think that there's too many areas to fill to try and do that move right now. As bad as I would love for them to trade up for Travis Hunter, I don't think that they would do that because they have too many other holes. The one thing I will say why a trade up would maybe be more likely in this draft than others is because maybe the value on what you have to give up to go up, because it isn't that great of a draft class, might be a little bit lower. But I still feel like if a guy, like, the reason I would do it would be for like a Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter type situation.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's for either one of those guys, I don't see where there would be a bargain to trade up for. I think the teams that have those draft slots would know, hey, Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter, they're premium picks in every draft. So we're not going to be giving any deals on this. We know that's who you want to get. We're not going to give you any bargains here. Whereas I think that fits a little bit better for a team that's maybe trying to jump up there to draft a quarterback, like let's say a Jackson Dart or something like that, or maybe even at the tail end of the first round for someone trying to get in for a Jalen Milroe. I think maybe that asking price would be a little bit less, but I don't think going from 12 to 4 to get Travis Hunter, I don't think there's going to be any bargains there.
Yeah, no, I don't either. And I do think that's like a tricky spot, because there could be some teams like, what happens to Shedeur Sanders is fascinating, right? Not even going to the green room too, which is like, that's kind of very interesting to me. And then, obviously there's been a little bit of smoke to the Giants at pick 3, but you got a team.
He's a lock top 10 pick. You think he's in that green room?
I absolutely think he's in that green room. I think there's
100%.
I think we all know the questions are, it's very, very sketchy. You have a couple teams there without a quarterback right now. The Steelers being one of them. The Saints, they are in the top 10, and whatever's going on with Derek Carr, no one really knows. And I'm sure the Saints aren't thinking next year's win now mode, so they may not do that. But there's a lot of action going on at quarterback and usually you go, well, that's what teams would trade up for. But here, I think you're right. It is a little different. A little reminiscent of what happened to the Cowboys in that Micah draft a couple years ago. And obviously the corners went off the board and things like that. That's where I think this would be way more interesting if there was a corner there that you loved. I don't know how the Cowboys feel about Will Johnson. I know how I feel about Will Johnson, and he terrifies the bejesus out of me because, frankly, as a Packers fan, you can have a top flight corner in Jair Alexander, but if he plays half the games, you're not happy with what you got there. And I think there's something there that would make this a little bit more interesting. I'm writing down McMillan for you, John. I'm writing it down.
Do it.
I wrote it down for Saad. I'm going to do something different. Very clear. If they take McMillan, I'm pretty stoked about that. As we speak right now, I don't think McMillan makes it to the Cowboys at 12. I think he's off the board. Let's go. The running back's not going to happen. We're going to assume that's not happening. All right. We're going to assume that's gone. We are going to go, and I think this throws a wrench into everything they probably wanted to do in their top 3 picks. Mike Green out of Marshall, who that is one of Dane's 13 first round grades. Great pass rusher, good against the run as well, even though he's a little undersized. He's awesome, and he was only at Marshall because of some off-the-field stuff that I'm sure will get vetted. You guys don't know how I feel, though. If the Cowboys are ever going to get back to their glory days, in the words of the great Norm Macdonald, we got to get back to the good old days. No, I'm not going to make the joke. Just because the Cowboys they might listen to stuff now. The joke was strippers and cocaine, and there's nothing that would say Mike Green has ever taken part in any of that. Mike Green is awesome, and we're going to do that, but it throws a wrench in our. How are we going to get a wide receiver, a corner, and a runner in the first 3 rounds? but best player, maybe the phone doesn't ring, you can't move back. I hate that we still kind of have a right guard hole. I hate that we don't really address defensive tackle. But if Mike Green's there, I'm looking at my board and I'm going, I like him more than Texas Kelvin Banks. I like him more than Matthew Golden. We're not going to take the leap on O'Marion Hampton or whoever your running back 2 is. So that's where we are. Mike Green, are you guys okay with that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely okay with that after hearing Broadus talk about him too, and I've watched Mike Green, some Mike Green tape over the offseason. I think he's good, and I also think that I don't think it would be out of the realm of possibility. I know a lot of people look at Schottenheimer, offensive guy, but one thing that's been really consistent with every time Schottenheimer's talked to us and talked to the media is he really talks about the trenches, both up front, both sides of the ball. And so, I think that's something that Mike Green would fill pretty quickly. And I think stacking up there, look, I mean, Sam Williams is in a weird situation contract wise. We don't really know what's going to happen with him beyond, just for the long term. Obviously, he'll be back this year. But then after that, you're looking at a situation where, Dante Fowler's a vet too. And I think if you have Micah, Marshawn Nealand, and then Mike Green kind of as your pillars there moving forward, I think that's a good situation.
Yeah, I don't hate that at all. Because I would even say that if in my scenario of trading back, you get that additional 3rd round pick, so then you'd have 4, top 100 picks, let's say. I don't hate the edge rusher or defensive end, defensive tackle. I don't think that that's a bad move at all, to be honest with you. I think those are spots that make sense, especially if it's a player that you really like. And when you said the thing about right guard, I just feel like they've just made so many moves to just add guys to where you're like, well, Hoffman could do it, or TJ Bass could do it, and then you go out and get Sadiq Charles and Robert Jones, and it's just like you have all these bodies to throw at the one spot. They have so many offensive linemen on the roster right now. I'm just like, I'm interested to see how they cut it down at the end of. So I think that's what they want to do. I think they want to throw a bunch of bodies at it. Let's see who comes out on top, who's the best of that group, and then we roll forward. And if our offensive line isn't better or as good as we think it can be with this new coaching staff, then you go into the 2026 draft with offensive line being that spot, whether it's offensive tackle or guard. We're being like, hey, wherever we're drafting, that's where we're going to be targeting early in this draft. See what you have in this offensive line and fill in some of these other holes. That's the way I feel about it. But they did bring in some of these guys on their 30 visits, like Armand Membu, who it seems like he's a guy that I don't see any chance of him being there. It just seems like his stock is rising. And then Kelvin Banks from Texas, another guy that they brought in on a 30 visit. So those are probably guys that go 1st round, early 2nd. So, well, Membo will not go in the 2nd, but let's say Banks could slip a little. But they brought Banks in too. So obviously there's some interest in offensive line. I just don't think that it would make a ton of sense in this particular draft with this particular roster.
It also shows you how much is maybe riding on Tyler Guyton and Terrence Steele. Not that they would be saying this or thinking this because they're professionals, but if you're like, why are we going out of our way to get a guard in here when we don't even know if our left tackle and right tackle can play? And maybe they think they can and all of that, but it would be interesting. Like, oh, well, we're going to fill this part. It's the one guy. It's not like it's a sure shot that Terrence Steele and Tyler Guyton are studs. So, yeah, okay.
The one thing that's also interesting about the draft, particularly in your 1st, 2nd round, I mean, even into the 3rd, I'll say those first 2 days, it also tells you what they think about their roster too. So in your situation, let's use a mock as what they do. Doesn't that say a lot to you about how they feel about Sam Williams?
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Like, in my mock, the pick right before I take McMillan, it was Jahad Campbell, the linebacker from Alabama. If he was the pick for the Cowboys, doesn't that tell you a lot about how they feel about DeMarvion Overshown? If they're good with Overshown's knee in that, there's no way you're using off the ball linebacker when you already have Overshown and Maris Leofau. This isn't 1987. Like, you don't need 3-4 really good linebackers out on the field anymore. You need 2, and then a bunch of other depth guys that could potentially be better. Like, you would not be using the 12 pick on an off the ball linebacker if you feel really good there.
before we move on, I thought a couple names for first round type names who we might consider or think about or whatever. Obviously, the tight ends. I don't know if I'm going to get into Tyler Warren. They're going to do tight end. Jalen Walker from Georgia is interesting because it's the kind of the same thing. It's not exactly like Micah, but played a lot of linebacker. And they're like, okay, we can project him into a defensive end. And you're testing scores and all that stuff and the measurables. Like, it's what you want in a football player. And I just wonder, Eberflus, it's interesting. Offensive head coach, maybe he's got more swing. I don't know what they're thinking there. But after doing it with Micah, kind of, who played very little defensive end, Jalen Walker's same type of thing, who, if he's there, I could see them salivating over that. But that's more of a projection and less of a sure shot thing, I think, than if we're doing one of the guys that we talked about taking.
What about Walter Nolan, the defensive tackle from Ole Miss, who was one of their 30 visitors?
Boy, if they did that early, I would not like that at all. But I think there's something. I think there's something really good about Nolan. But I'm hoping Nolan falls to me in round 2. I mean, I don't think that's gonna happen.
Yeah, I was gonna say I haven't seen any mocks where he falls that far.
I think he's more late first round.
So he might be a trade back guy if you trade back.
Guy, yeah.
I don't know. The one I did, he went 27th. So
yeah, he went 29th in mine. So
Yeah.
But I mean, these things bounce around, especially in this draft where we really are talking about pick 12. But we'll use Dane's guide. We'll say pick 14 to pick 50, and you're like, okay, whatever. It's all different.
If you're at pick 12 and say all the guys you picked here are off the board, are you just waiting for that phone to ring?
Oh, I think the phone rings all the time anyway. I think that's all like a myth about the whole like, oh, well, you got to have a partner or whatever. Like, I think that there's always a couple options out there, but it's like, what are you willing to give up? What's that team willing? And if you're just completely where you're like, man, there's 5 guys that we all kind of like the same right here, you'll find a team to move back 6, 7 spots.
Absolutely. I mean, that's just, I
is that where your mind would go though, John?
100%.
Asking. Yeah.
100%. Absolutely. And I think that's where theirs is too. And I think that's why Steven would say that on the radio. This isn't like there's rumors that come out that, hey, sources are saying that the Niners would like to move into the, top 6 or 7 or whatever like that. Well, those are sources. Stephen Jones just said that it'd be more likely that they would move back. They've obviously discussed that situation, so. And then again, like I said, for doing it twice in the last 4 years, it's not like it's one of those things where you're like, well, like when Saad said the thing about Morris Claiborne, if they're like, well, trading back seems unlikely. They haven't done it since the Travis Frederick draft. It's a little bit different. When you've done it twice in the last 4 years, it seems like a good possibility. If what you said is the case, I certainly see them moving back. The thing that I would be interested in there is how far. Like, you don't want to move too far back. You want to maybe move back 5, 6 spots. I don't like the idea of going from 12 to 25. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I also think that a lot of those conversations sometimes are like, hey, we'll give you our first and a 5th. And I think in that situation, you're like, no, you're not. So you still have the option to move back. It's just not worth it because you're only getting a 5th. All of a sudden that team says, all right, we'll up that to a 3 or something. Then that's different. I think another thing that, I haven't heard this from anyone or anything like that, but one thing that I would be interested in is if the Cowboys in their trade games, if they are trading back or things like that, how much of it could have to do with next year's draft as well, like a day 2 pick next year? Because a lot of the things that the Cowboys have done this year kind of tell us that they're not really all in, for lack of a better term, on this year being the year. So if a team that's trying to move up 4 or 5 spots says, hey, we'll give you this, you trade back 5 spots, but we'll give you next year's 2. I don't know. Like, that's, I'll be curious to see if that enters the equation at any point.
Well, okay. So, and now that I'm looking at this trade chart, if you get back into the 20s, then you're looking at getting a team's 2nd round pick for this year. So that's the part where you're like, it would suck to move back that far after, you're up at 12. But I think in that scenario, there'd be like 6 or 7 guys you kind of like the same, which is totally possible. I mean, if anything, that's what people are saying about this draft, is that there's that feel of sometimes what you can get at 15, you might be able to get at 28.
Yeah.
And so if that's the case, now you're looking at, you're picking in the early 20s, but you got that team's second round pick. So now you have 2 twos, then you certainly can get a good corner and in that situation, you're probably getting one of those Ohio State running backs and a really good corner on top of whoever you're taking in that 20, let's say 3 range or something like that. So I don't think it's terrible. And I'm only saying it just because, like I said earlier, I think this draft's boring. So there's not a lot of names that really excite me. So if we go back to Kent's scenario where all the guys we were just talked about are gone, yeah, you could certainly interest me in that.
Because you can easily tuck yourself into a couple things. Like for me, let's say McMillan's gone, and you can't do that at 12. I start getting myself almost that Genty to that conversation just to sex it up a little bit. 3 top 50 players or 2, like that's kind of the way simply I can look at it. But yeah, I know there's a lot there. Again, I think the Steelers at 21 are interesting, not having quarterback solution yet, because of that guy, Aaron Rodgers, who is just so aloof and just doing his own thing all the time. No one has been more selfish. Last player I want to talk about before we go to round 2 real quick. Jahdae Barron, not on the 30 visit list, but a guy they did meet with at the combine. That is your Jordan Lewis replacement. And if you could get him at 12, I wouldn't hate it. I don't love it there because you love that at 18, maybe like we've been talking about, but that's another name I had to run back there because we did not address corner and we might not in their top 3 rounds. So that's just a name to throw out. All right. Let's go to round 2, Saad. You took T-Mac. That's going round 2. He likes to go by T-Mac apparently. Ted McMillan. He doesn't like Ted, apparently. He wants T-Mac. So Tetaroa McMillan. Round 2. Who do you got, Saad?
I had Travion Henderson there, and if he's sitting there, I like as John said, either of the Ohio State backs. Both were available for me. And so I took Henderson. I like him a little bit more than the other one. So yeah, Keyshawn Judkins, but yeah, so I took Henderson.
I like what you've done there. And that's matches up a need, definitely some interest there, some juice. That's the thing. This offense needs, in so many ways, some juice. And there you go. That does it for you right there. So I love it. He is not available in round 2 for me on my Makaru. Looks like he went. No, he is. He is actually. Yes, I just had to go down to get him. There we go. John.
Yeah, he was available there for me. But I ended up going corner here. And I just felt like there were still a lot of good running backs still available. And I know you're risking it a little bit, trading back, obviously. But I went with a corner by the name of Trey Amos. I had some interest in Azareye'h Thomas from Florida State, Wanye Thomas's brother. But he ended up going about 3 picks earlier. But Trey Amos, he's got pretty good size. It seems like he would be a fit for, the type of corner that the Cowboys usually look for. And that's about where he's going in most mock drafts. And so I kind of felt like, that one makes sense there. But all those running backs that you guys are talking about, let's see, they were all there. I'm trying to think if anybody was gone. No, Caleb Johnson's there. Cam Scadaboo.
No, I'm good on that.
Yep, he was there. Junkins was there. Henderson was there. So, those were on the table. I just felt like I got to the point where I think I liked the corners that were available there better than I liked what they would have been in the 3rd round. And I just thought there was a lot of good running backs left. Now, of course, me saying that runs the risk of, again, I'm drafting for the Cowboys. So yeah, they've done this in the past where all of a sudden then I take that player there, and then in the next 10 picks, there's a running back on a run on like 4 of those guys are gone. And then all of a sudden now you're dropping down in the 3rd. So, but I thought it was worth taking that risk there. Everybody keeps talking about how good this running back class is and how, maybe it's one of those things where if you don't draft one till the 3rd, maybe take one in the 3rd and you take another one in the 5th or 6th, or, you sign a bunch of guys undrafted free agency and maybe you find another Rico Dowdle type or something as an undrafted or late round guy.
Trey Amos has been getting steamed up a little bit lately. In fact, on my draft here, he went 36th to Jacksonville. So if you're picking 44, O'Marion Hampton went 38 on mine. James Pierce, the defensive end, who I don't need because I just took Mike Green, but he went 40. One that's interesting and has my attention because you've seen him go in the first round a lot, but second round, and he's there at 42. Gray Zabel, who, could probably play 5 offensive line spots, but he figures to be a center or a guard at the next level. There's some names of guys who I think Cowboys would be interested in who will be getting close to you at 44.
The thing about Gray Zabel, too, though, is that he would be one of those guys that in your scenario where after the first round ends, he'd be one of the biggest names people would be talking about still being out there. And then every pick that goes by, it would be more and more talked about, like how he's there. So it would become the one where, like, even though it was an offensive lineman, I think the fans would be thrilled if he ended up being the Cowboys pick there. There'd be so much hype around that just because, I mean, hell, there's been people that had him mocked like in the top 20, And so for you be able to get somebody like that, I understand the offensive line pick isn't sexy, but if he was to fall all the way to you in the second round, I don't hate that at all.
So, John, you pulled the trigger here at Trey Amos. I'm writing it down just to make sure, because I'm going to tweet these out later just to make sure everyone's happy. I got a couple options for you guys. Walter Nolan has fell in mine, which I do think is possible. I don't think that's likely, though, so I'm not going to do it. I also don't love him. I like him. I don't love him.
Yeah. How do you think he fits with the defensive tackles there on the roster? Like, how do you think he would be used? Best?
Well, he's a 3 tech to me. Like, I don't think you can play him as a 1.
Yeah.
So I think that's where you kind of get into a situation there. If you just signed Osa, but it doesn't matter. You just signed Osa, you can have as many 3 techs as you want in your roster. It's your choice.
It's probably more of a 1 is that Kenneth Grant. Can you imagine if they did that?
They surely know better than to do this. 2 strikes.
If you guys
strikes and you're out on Michigan
defensive tackle, we are going to add in Michigan defensive tackle.
I normally don't like this, but because it's Michigan, I'm going to do it, John. Sorry. You're out. You take a Michigan first rounder. Get off my lawn. No. And Will McClain knows that. Then you take a guy in the second round like a Jordan Lewis.
Colston Loveland at 12.
Third round. You know what?
Machine Gun Kelly.
I don't want Colston Loveland at 12, but I did see someone threw that out there. Mason Graham's annoying to me too, because I think he's really good. And everyone's like, he's going to Jacksonville at 5. Everyone just shut up. He's going to, and I'm like, okay. And he's just got that Michigan thing where it's like very good. You see it, but you're always watching it and going, I thought he was like a clear top 5. And because you have expectations of what a top 5 defensive tackle should look like, and it's unrealistic to meet those expectations. He's great. He'd be wonderful if he slipped at 12, and he won't unless he wants to get high on the couch with the gas mask on. We've seen it before.
It's funny, though, that you say about the Michigan guys, because if I look at all the Michigan guys in the NFL, I think the Green Bay Packers have one of the best ones in Rashawn Gary.
Man, how good was he last year when they moved to a 4-3? Yeek. Give a guy $25 million, then change the defense, and then he's not that effective. Okay, sorry. I have a wild card scenario that's interesting, and I wonder, we're going to need the private investigators. We're going to need everyone involved on this.
Oh, boy.
And not in a criminal way, but just in the, what's this guy's deal way? He has a 30 visit for the Cowboys.
Oh, I know where you're going. Okay.
He has been, honestly, maybe slandered throughout the entire draft process. Luther Burden from Missouri. If he's there at 44, I think you take him because he's kind of awesome. And I don't know what the situation is. His 2023 tape is way better than 2024.
I think if he's there at 44 in your scenario, you take him.
I'm taking him and Mike Green.
I can take him after they take McMillan in the first.
Now we're scoring 40 points.
We're fixing this wide receiver thing, okay?
Like Missouri had some dog crap quarterbacks too. I don't know if people remember who Brady Cook is. Good Lord. Like just some bad stuff going on. Play a ton in the slot. And You look around and you're like, okay, so why? Why? Everyone's agreeing that he has wonderful tape and he's a great player, but we can't agree that he should be going in the first round because of questions and the specifics on some of those questions. I know Dane does probably the best on that, right? Because I think that's probably like going to the beast. What are the questions? And I think the questions are you're a very simple college guy. Everyone thinks the world of you in college. Do you have to work as hard as you need to work in college? Like, it's not something like super dangerous or anything like that. So I think that's where I kind of end up going, well, you know what? I think I can find a way to make this thing work in the mid to late first round if I was a team who needed a really good wide receiver. So I'm going to go ahead and say I don't think he falls this far to 44, so I'm not going to take him. But that's my wild card name to remember in round 2 because that could solve your wide receiver woes real quick.
Yeah, I would say that if he fell and if he was there at 44, and McMillan, and I picked McMillan at 12, I'd have just a little bit of buyer's remorse where I'd be like, man, I could have done something else at 12 and just gotten Burden at 44. Not saying I would take Burden after taking McMillan, but I would have that thought of like, if I would have just traded back or done something, because I don't think Burden's going to be there at 44.
Yeah, I don't either. And that's why I'm not.
I think for me, I would also, if he's there at 44 and I already took McMillan, like in my scenario, there'd be a part of me where I'd be like, yeah, I have some regret, but it'll be easy for me to get over this because for him to fall that far, maybe I thought he had some issues, but if he falls to 44, I'm like, well, maybe he had even more issues than I thought for default. For me, I don't even care about any of that other stuff as much as like one of the red flags for me is just like how much his numbers went down from last year to this year, I know he dealt with some injuries and stuff like that, but it's kind of for a stud receiver like that, it is kind of surprising that they did. So that'd be like one area for me. But if he was to fall away to 44, there'd be a lot of like, okay, wait a second, maybe what am I missing here? Maybe I didn't like him as much as my top receiver, but I didn't think he'd be falling this far.
I'm glad you brought that up because I think that it does matter. We're talking 25 catches. We're talking about half the yardage.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of times in college too, you get that kind of, I'm going into bubble wrap mode here. Dude, there are games where Teteroa McMillan did not play as hard as he could have played.
Yeah.
And there are some big stand-up games that really pad his numbers. But I think you can see some things with him that like Teteroa McMillan is quicker than people give him credit for. Everyone says because he's a 6'4", big, long guy. The first thing everyone talks about is catch radius and things like that. Like, watch him after he catches a slant route and bullies a corner and gets inside and then is laterally running across the field. Like, things like that's what gets me excited about him.
The other thing for me, too, with him is it's the he's not going in our, for Saad and I, he's not going to a team that, like, needs him to be the number one. So, like, he's not going to a team that every other team's best corner and their defensive game plan is going to be all about, well, we have to take him away. And there are some situations that he could get drafted in where that would be the case. Whereas with the Cowboys, that's not going to be the case. Like, they need him to be a number 2 who, if he could put up like a 1 because of all the attention that CeeDee Lamb's going to get, And so I just think the Cowboys situation fits him really well.
Yeah, actually, I mean, it's kind of the role that CeeDee Lamb came into where CeeDee Lamb was, more highly regarded, I think, a little bit, but he fell all the way to the 20s and he came in and Amari Cooper was already here and Michael Gallup and everything. So I think, I think it's in that situation.
I'm going to take in the second round. I'm going to avoid running back again. I'm going to do the waiting game because I think I can. I'm taking a blue star special here, a guy who's had a little bit of injuries, but it's a guy they met with at the combine. They have been they've been kind of under the radar with their cornerback visits, but they didn't meet with him at the combine. So we got Benjamin Morrison, Notre Dame, 6 foot 191. He would have been a first rounder. Clearly, he tore his labrum midway through last season. So I understand hips are a worrisome thing. I also think the Cowboys enjoy drafting second round guys who would have been first round guys. They love guys who would have been first round guys. In fact, they love guys who were first round guys and then failed places and then signed them in free agency to bring them in. Benjamin Morrison is my cornerback.
With that, did you have any thought of thinking of players they were interested in. Siobhan Ravel from East Carolina is a corner that they brought in on a 30. But the issue there is that similar to Morrison coming off an injury, but it's an ACL injury. So did you have any consideration with him at all?
I did, but he was gone in my situation. He was gone at, looks like he went, did he go late first? He went late first in mine. But yeah, no, he's absolutely, and that's like, it jumps out that he is a 30 visit because they haven't gone as deep on corners as I thought they would.
Yeah.
And, I don't know, maybe they thought they would get something done with Jordan Lewis, or maybe, they've had time to figure all that. Yeah, he went 23rd to Green Bay in this, which would not be a surprise at all. Going, in the first round for him.
Well, the thing about him though is that he fits with the 6'1", almost 6'2", almost 33-inch arms. You know what I'm saying? Like that's the stuff they love that. So that's one reason why it fits with their type of what they're interested in, and so that's the only reason. But again, he's coming off an ACL, and obviously with what you have with Trayvon Diggs and his knee injury issues and things like that, that's the only reason why I'm kind of like, ugh.
He's awesome.
Yeah.
His two questions are the ACL in September and the fact that he played at East Carolina, if you want to do that bit, So let's move it on. I'll be going offense in round 3, guys. So have fun. Saad, you're up. You took Tet, Aroa, McMillan in round 1, Travion Henderson in round 2, the sexiest draft so far, wide receiver, running back. What are we doing in round 3?
Yeah, it gets a little less sexy in my opinion in round 3 because I really wanted to take a corner and kind of do the 3 that we're talking about, wide receiver, running back, and corner. There just wasn't anybody left on the board. Talk about Ravel Jr., Benjamin Morrison. They came off before. So I took Alfred Collins. I don't love taking a defensive tackle in the 3rd round. Their track record of taking defensive tackles in the draft, anything that's beyond a premium position, whether you look at Mozzie, whether you look at Tristan Hill, just go on down the line there. Viliami Fehoko, just whatever the case is, I don't love the pick. There just wasn't a whole lot that I loved. I was literally going to take Jack Sawyer, and he went 2 picks before me. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting as he's a visit too, that throws a lot into it. And Alfred Collins is a guy who could go in round 2. If he's there at round 3, you'd be like, okay, it's a guy we like, and we could have seen him going earlier. The upside is huge with him. 6'5", 332, something like that. I mean, he's big, and that's the whole thing is like, he's one of those guys, freaky long arms, but he's one of those guys that's going to need to get coached up. I don't know that you're like getting a guy who comes in and changes your entire defensive line. Obviously in the 3rd round, you're not getting that, but he's that's like one of those like picks I actually like in there because you have a guy who's not tapped out. Like this is a guy who's got potential to be a big time game wrecker, but it's just not there yet.
Yeah, and a lot of times fans will do what we were just talking about with Michigan. They'll look at a school and kind of have some preconceived notions about the schools. I don't do that. I don't really go into that line of thinking, but I do that with NFL teams and positions. So I had this last year when the Cowboys drafted Tyler Guyton. I'm like, given their track record, the way that they scout offensive linemen, if I was on the fence about Guyton, I'm in because Will McClay and the Cowboys said that they believe in this guy, so I'm in on him. I have the opposite thing with anybody the Cowboys pick a defensive tackle where I'm like, I like Alfred Collins. I wouldn't pick him if I didn't like him. But if the Cowboys picked him, I'd be like, I don't know how this is going to go given their track record picking defensive tackles.
John, real quick, Florida State, Joshua Farmer. Would you take him over Alfred Collins, or would you take Alfred Collins over Joshua Farmer? Throwing out some just kind of day 2 DTs.
I'm kind of biased to Florida State guys, so yeah, I probably would go Farmer. Yeah,
both these guys are huge. Jack Farmer's arms, 35-inch arms.
Yeah. I mean, I'd be fine either way, to be honest with you.
John, you took T-Mac, then you took Trey Amos, the corner from Ole Miss. Round 3. Are we going to get our runner?
So this is at pick 76, and 2 picks before me, Benjamin Morris went. And so when he's sliding there, I'm thinking, if he was there and I took Amos in the second, I would be kind of, kicking myself on the, well, I wish I would have taken one of those Ohio State running backs there and then gotten Benjamin Morrison in the third. That would have been, I would have loved that draft. So he goes 2 picks before me to Carolina. And so at 76, I took Tennessee running back Dylan Sampson. And so he's Dane Brugler's 6th running back in this class, undersized, 5'8", probably about 200 pounds or whatever. But one of the things that Dane wrote about him, he said that he's an undersized but a fast, physical, and slippery Tony Pollard-like weapon. And so that kind of worked for me. I don't, he had big numbers last year at Tennessee. I mean, just huge, like breakout. Like I think he had like 22 touchdowns, over 1,400 yards. So the production is certainly there, and I like that a lot. But I don't love 5'8", 200. But yeah, I think he had 1,491 yards rushing and 5.8 yards per carry, 22 touchdowns. And it fills the running back hole. And that also doesn't mean I can't still take a running back, another one later in the draft that maybe is a little bit opposite of him. But I just felt like that filled their top 3 needs with my top 3 picks.
Was he a visit? Sorry,
I don't think so.
You said that.
No. I don't think
he was either. Yeah.
He wasn't. The running backs that I've got so far on their 30s were, Genty, a Dallas State guy, but Omar Hampton, Travion Henderson, Quinshawn Judkins, and Virginia Tech, Bashul Tootin. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's still some 30-day visitors that are unknown.
Yeah,
at this
for
point.
sure.
So there's still a lot of things that could happen.
Yeah.
In the next few days. Dylan Sampson, you've kind of filled that. See, this is the problem with doing this is I tried to get a little different, and I'm looking at mine and I'm like, okay, so I took defensive end and corner, so we're not going to get to what we needed there. Wide receiver.
Well,
wide
you say that, but even in my scenario, like I felt good about Sampson being there, and I'm happy with my first 3 picks. Don't get me wrong, but like if he's gone, like I really don't like anybody else that's left, and so that really puts me in a tough spot where it worked out well for me, but like who the other guys were, like the other options if I didn't take him, I really didn't love. Trying to think here. Okay, Farmer was there.
Okay.
Next running back to go was Giddens from Kansas State, Neal from Kansas.
Not having a 4th rounder does kind of hurt.
The safety from Texas, who I believe was one of their visitors.
Oh yeah,
there.
Mabuka.
Yeah, but I just don't know.
Yeah.
With this particular team, how they value safety. It's one of those things where like if they took a safety with one of their top 3 picks, I'll kind of believe it when I see it,
I think running back could stretch to the 5th round. I know that sounds like a drunken mess, but there's enough guys at the back end of that are like, at least I just there's good players in college.
You tell me the Cowboys don't take a running back until the 5th round. Just in you saying that to me, I would think that's very disappointing. But you'd have to tell me what they got before them. Like if they got like a couple, like just an edge rusher that fell that I was like, wow, I never thought that guy would be there in the 2nd or 3rd round, or like another position where, you're just like, wow, like that was great value. You can't hate on that. They can figure out running back. That was a great pick to be able to get that guy in the 2nd round. I can be fine with that, but it's like if those top 4 rounds, 3 rounds aren't that impressive, waiting till the 5th on a running back, I think that would be making me think that this draft is heading in the direction of the last 2, which Saad wrote about recently, about just how they just haven't been good. And so I can get by on a running back not till the 5th, but you got to tell me what you got before that.
Yeah, and KT, to your point on that, one thing that I would like to see them do, and this is not going to be me bashing Mingo because I'm going to give him a whole training camp and all that stuff before I do any of before I criticize that in that way. But I would like for them to bridge that gap between 76 and 149. If you have to throw a couple, like you have multiple 5, 7, 6. If you have to throw a few of your day 3 ones together, and if you can get back a little bit in, whether it's into the 4th round, hell, the 3rd round, but even if not, even if you can get a 4th rounder there and bridge the gap from 76 overall to 149, get somewhere in the middle there. I would like to see them do that for sure.
Okay, I need you guys to help me get a wide receiver running back because this kind of goes to what you were saying there, Saad. Because I'm at I told you Mike Green and then Benjamin Morse in the corner for Notre Dame. So if I wanted to go runner there in round 3, my last available pick from a value standpoint would be Judkins from Ohio State, who maybe won't still be there, maybe he will be. I like Henderson.
If that's the case, that's a no-brainer for you.
Yeah, no, of course. And then I go to wide receiver and see what's available there. And I go, okay, well, we have, there's Jack Beck, the TCU wide receiver, who, he's a Dallas Day guy. I don't know how much they would like him. I don't know how much I love him in round 3, honestly. Savion Williams is more of a do-everything guy. That's not some polished wide receiver. You actually have a version of Savion Williams. He's just a much smaller version of him in Turpin. Kyle Williams from Washington State. I absolutely love him, and I think he's getting slept on because he's had a knee injury and things like that. That's a really good player, but I don't know if the Cowboys would like him, and we have no evidence to think that they would.
What about Isaiah Bond? Is he there?
Isaiah Bond has been drafted, although I don't know if this website got the news.
Yeah.
So we'll find out. I've got a Torrey Horton, Colorado State.
Chiefs.
Yeah, very much a Chiefs type player right there, and would help them, immediately. So, the one guy that I think was a guy who I believe was a visit, Ty Felton from Maryland, still there. But I'm reaching now. If I got to get a wide receiver, so I go to runner. I take Judkins and I move on. Do you guys think it's realistic that Judkins would be there at 76? Though, do you think it's too?
Yeah, I think that's really asking for a lot. Just because
I'm not going to do it then.
Well, I just look at I just feel like there's kind of a gap there between so you got Genty, Hampton, Caleb Johnson, Travion Henderson, Quinshon Judkins. I think those are all kind of, they're not all together, obviously, but I'm saying they seem to be a little bit above the next group. So I don't know. It's possible. I mean, if he's there,
that's where the Tootin visit from Virginia Tech, which is fun, explosive type player that you would want.
Yeah.
That's where you're like, 4th round. Does he make it to the 5th? I wouldn't bank on it, but maybe. You'll get some of those other guys like Devin Neal. That's more of your kind of power back. Ollie Gordon does not have the explosion that he had. Maybe Jadon Blue could maybe be that explosive type who can catch a little bit. Again, we're reaching into the 5th rounds right there, so I don't know if there's a certain style they're looking for. What their visitors have don't really tell us that. What they signed in Miles Sanders and Javonte Williams doesn't tell us that. In my head, I'm telling myself they're going to sign Nick Chubb just because that seems fun. So I keep telling myself that maybe they push the running back thing down the road again. But I think it's
already 23. Wow. Okay. There's a couple. Man, the age on some of these guys. Archie Harvey's 24.
These guys are getting older too. They're staying and getting some years.
Old Cam Scattaboo over there is 23.
I'll take Taj Brooks 3 rounds later than Cam Scattaboo. Good luck, NFL, with Team Scattaboo. That guy is just a redneck. He's just gonna cause so much chaos. He's gonna get guys hurt at practice. We've seen this story. Is very much varsity blues. All right, guy. I guess I'll take Judkins. I don't love it. I love it. I don't. The reason I don't love it is I don't think it's realistic. So I guess I have to take Quinn Ewert. No, we'll go running back. Judkins. Does Tyler Shuck or Jackson Dart go in front of Shedeur Sanders?
Ooh,
Tyler Shuck's he's getting gassed up a little bit. Jackson Dart is very much
Jalen Milroe, man.
Jalen Milroe's getting gassed up.
Wow, that is a good question. I don't think so. He is getting his jersey retired at Colorado. Yeah, I don't think they will. It would be a fascinating story if they do.
Yeah, I wonder how much teams do play in the Dion factor, and to be honest, I wonder which way it plays for some teams. Like for Cowboys, that would be a reason to draft Shedeur, where some people might be like, we don't want to deal with that, all this kind of stuff. So yeah, I wonder how much that plays, and if that result in a tiebreaker going to someone like Tyler Shuck, but I don't think so.
I'm trying to think of another player that, yeah, I mean, we obviously see it with social media, like family members like sounding off about like, the team and it gets headlines and stuff, but like, does anybody have a family member that like could tweet something or say something that would be stronger than if Deion Sanders does? Like if you have your son is like the backup quarterback somewhere and the starter isn't playing very well and everyone's starting to push for Shador to play, like, I don't know that Deion would say anything, but you can't rule it out. And if he does, it's just such a big deal, whatever he says, so.
Dude,
I could see some teams being turned off by it.
Yeah, and this is a whole different league, so I get it's apples to oranges, but this is 10 years ago. We couldn't stop listening to what LeVar Ball had to say, and he was everywhere, and that was LeVar Ball.
Never
This would be Deion Sanders. It would be just everywhere.
Guys, I have some good news. Tootin has made it in my draft to 149 in the 5th round, so I'm gonna just assume in my head that I took Kyle Williams or
I just want you to go through everybody that's gone in your draft in these first 2 rounds, because there's got to be some Cam Scadaboo at 24s or something for.
Okay, let me find out where Scadaboo went, because he definitely was not there a minute ago. There's a pick 81, Jonah Savaiinaea. That's a visit, right? Or Savaiinaea, the offensive lineman. I believe so. Scadaboo, pick 88 to the Jacksonville Jaguars. So 12 after we took him.
Okay.
He was still there. I just didn't consider him. I wished I knew what other wide receivers they like down the line, because my big one take of the podcast is I don't think McMillan's there at 12.
Maybe they don't though, KT.
Yeah.
Maybe it's that, hey, we got plenty of guys that are in the 3rd, 4th round here. We got plenty of Brooks, Tolberts, Mingos, Kavontae Turpin. Like, it's already to a spot where it's like, okay, so how many receivers are you even keeping? CeeDee Lamb's on the roster. Mingo's on the roster. Tolbert's on the roster. Kavontae Turpin's on the roster. So you're already at 4 there. If you draft one, that's 5. And then I could see them being whoever wins out of the Jalen Brooks. Who am I forgetting here?
Paris Campbell,
and I think there's one other player. Well, obviously, if they drafted somebody, that player would be on 2. But yeah, so I mean, they're not keeping 6. So I bet you that they're like, yeah, we're good. We don't think we can get a number. We need a number 2. We have a 1. We have a 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 if we need them. But we need a 2. And if it isn't one of these 4 guys, we don't think any of these other guys are worthy of being better than anything we already have.
Which is a similar logic that they played running back with last year, where it was like they were like, hey, well, yes, we need a running back, whatever, but then if we get to a point where we don't feel like any of these running backs are better than Rico Dowdle, then we're just not going to take one. So yeah. I mean, yeah, that's kind of the logic they had last year.
Interesting. That's something to think about now, because I've had dead set like that might be their biggest need is wide receiver 2. I was like, well, we can't get that guy. All right, you guys are blowing my mind.
Well, I'll also say this. If they don't get their wide receiver 2 because they do some other things in the draft and let's not act like you can't get a wide receiver from another team via trade, or when other teams are done drafting, maybe somebody else becomes available because of that. Like, I wouldn't sit here and say that you just, if you don't get it. I feel that way about running back, to be honest with you. Just because I think it's a young man's game. You want to get as much as you can. And then also that this class is a good running back class. I'm more interested in coming out of this draft class with a running back than the whole wide receiver thing. I only think the wide receiver thing makes sense is if you're like, no, this guy's a 2 that will step in and be a 2 right away, which is probably those 4 guys that they had in on their visits. And those will probably be the first 4 wide receivers taken if you don't count Travis Hunter.
Yeah. And real quick, KT, if I may, because Dane just freshly published his 7-round mock draft this morning. And while we're talking about all this, just to give you the rundown, Cam Ward went number 1, Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter rounded out the top 3. Will Campbell, Ashton Genty went at 5 to the Jaguars. Going on down, Tet McMillan went to the Saints, Kellen Moore's new toy, at number 9. And then it was Tyler Warren, Shamar Stewart, and the Cowboys took Matthew Golden.
Ugh.
Yeah, Mike Green went at 15.
Yeah. Golden's fine.
Golden's fine if you get another third round pick attached to him in a trade back.
Yeah, I can find a way. Like, dude, I'll tell you, like, just candidly as a Packers fan, I don't want them messing around with Golden at 23.
Yeah, and by the way, the thing that John that you're talking about, like with that attached, there is value to that, and the best example of that is last year where it's you can get a tackle, that's fine, but now you get Tyler Guyton and Cooper Beebe, it changes the whole dynamic of it, because now if your first round tackle is having a rough rookie year, you already know you got a starting center with him as opposed to not having that.
And it definitely worked out with the Terrence Williams, Travis Frederick draft too. To get Terrence Williams with that third round pick, I mean, he was a solid number 2 receiver for them for several years. So I thought that one worked out well. It's just the Micah one, you end up getting Chauncey Golston. Whereas, like, let's say if that would have been, can you imagine if that's Micah trading back 2 spots and then the other player is Osa, who they also took in the third round. I think they had 3 third round picks that year. Like, you're looking at that as like, oh, that's just the blueprint. We're doing that every year now,
This makes me want to go watch Matthew Golden again. Also, when Dane drops his 7-round mock draft, that means there's probably going to be a big trade in the NFL at some point today. This throws his whole 7-round mock draft that he spent days working on, just throws a big wrench in it. Carson Wentz did it to him years back. Yeah, okay. Well, we did it. Thank you all for listening. Kent's in charge. Ken, are we back again before the draft, or is this our bon voyage?
I think this is probably it, right?
Probably. Unless you guys are dying to
Unless there's something breaking, that shakes things up, maybe.
I mean, it sounds like they're going to have a
before next Wednesday.
Yeah, it sounds like they're going to have a press conference early next week, but maybe they talk today after the Tyron Smith press conference and knock that out. But yeah, there was some rumors flying around that maybe next Tuesday they have a pre-draft press conference. So if that's the case, maybe we do something the next day after that, possibly.
Yeah, next one for sure will be right after the draft.
Yeah, that's for sure. And if you get lucky and get a bonus one before that, that's great. Thank you all for listening to us just go on and on about the draft and the Cowboys. We really appreciate it, and we would never trade Luke. For Kent Garrison, for John Machota, for Saad Youssef, I'm Kevin, reminding you that the studio on Apple TV is the best TV show going right now. Guys, enjoy. You're going to love it. Also, we'll see you next time that we do this, because we don't know what it is on the One Star Cowboys.
Welcome back to the draft.
And with the
Primetime
pick, Keyshawn Johnson.
Well, be ready.
And with the first round pick,
All options are open